Joining us now here on In the Circle is the head coach at Chico State. Of course, they've been to the World Series in 2018. They won the CCAA Tournament Championship in 2018, regular season champs in 2018, West Region champions in 2018, been to the Supers 2010 and 2018, been a perennial NCAA tournament program, and they'll be back on the field this year in 2022. I speak of Angel Shamblin, head coach at Chico State, joining us here on In the Circle. Coach, how you doing?
Great. We're back at it. The sun is shining. So we're doing fantastic out here. Thank you for asking.
Well, to me, it's one of the most fascinating stories in Division Two and really in all of softball coming into 2022 because you didn't get to play last year with everything that was going on in COVID. You weren't the only program, but you were one of the marquee programs, obviously, that stood out. What was last year like for you? What was it like for the program to just sit and watch as the season played out?
Difficult for our team, difficult for our kids. Most importantly, difficult for some seniors that chose to come back for a fifth year and made some adjustments to do that. And they were kids that had been with us since their freshman year who had went to the World Series early in their career. So really sad and heartbreaking for them that that's how they had to finish their career.
So take us through that process. Once you know you're not going to be able to play this season, how do you talk to your players? How do you get them to buy in to stick around and come back for another year? So it's a fascinating story. How do you kind of keep the roster intact? And here you are a year later.
Well, I think that there's a lot of foundation work that definitely went into that with a lot of people, not just me, including people within our program and on our team. I think that when the news hit, if I remember correctly, it was around December-ish, I think, that we weren't going to have a season. And, you know, when that hit, originally it was just like getting everybody through that process that we weren't going to have a season. And then we did what we could to stay in touch with our kids. A lot of our kids, fortunately, were here. So we got to see them one-on-one, off campus, all those sorts of things. And I think that, just the relationships that they had with one another and being committed to the program and each other, making a decision to come back and give it another shot.
That is just so wild. As a staff, do you go out recruiting more? Do you watch games? Like, what do you do? Like, you're used to being on a field from February to May. You weren't last year. So I'm just like, how do you deal for that? You talked about what you did with the players, but what do you do as a coach? You're not used to you're being at home or recruiting and not being on a field.
Yeah. At that time, we weren't even allowed to go out and recruit.
That's right.
Yeah. So I did a whole lot of yard work. So I was out on a different field. I was in my yard a lot and just did what I could around home, tried to spend more time with family, things that I normally don't get to do. So that was a positive, especially during the spring, don't get to do those things, but just did what we could. We actually got to start practicing as a program late in the spring last year. So we were planning for that as a staff too, but yeah, it was really interesting I think one of the first times in my life, not having softball during the spring season. It was difficult. It was difficult. Definitely felt an emptiness for sure.
What was it like? You mentioned the first practice. Was it a little special, a little more different? Like I would imagine, because I've talked to some other coaches in all divisions that acknowledge that what everybody's gone through the last couple of years, they've taken some things for granted. They don't anymore. Like they don't take fall practices anymore for granted. They don't take postseason for granted. Things like that. How did you feel when you got on that field that first practice and you knew you're gonna play this year? You're gonna play games. What was that like for you and the staff and the players?
Absolutely. I think, and we talk about it a lot. Our returners talk about it a lot. Our seniors just, you never know what's going to happen, what tomorrow brings. So just don't take today for granted. I think that is definitely a theme all around the country in sports, and just enjoying being back out there. I think there's a lot, just more smiles and fun, even though, what we do isn't easy. What they do isn't easy, managing school and softball and all that, but learning how to enjoy one another more. And like you said, not taking one day for granted. Enjoy the process more, enjoy practices more, looking forward to games.
Is there something that you didn't know when you were coaching, on the fly, that now you've had time to reflect that you maybe now appreciate more, whether it be in the industry, whether it's on the field, something that you maybe appreciate more having gone through what you've gone through?
Being around my team. It's when we do this, we're around each other all the time. Their family away from my family within my home. So not being able to be around the staff and the team was a huge emptiness, I think, for all of us. So I think just being around them every day again and remembering how much fun it is and how much they bring into my life and each other's life has been significant for me.
Well, you're going to be back on the field, and it's not going to be easy right off the bat. You're going to open up with up in Irvine at the Concordia Kickoff Classic. You're playing Biola, who's the national runner-up, among others, Colorado Mesa, who's ranked Northwest Nazarene. Just talking about now, what's it like to make a schedule? You haven't played since 2020. You haven't played in a postseason since 2019 with all the circumstances. What's that like to make a schedule right off the bat here? And I mean, literally, you're going to learn things about your players probably more than other coaches may learn from their players. What is that going to be like?
Geez, I don't know. I'll tell you when it's over. I mean, it's been so long since I've even coached. Of course, I coached in some fall games this fall, but it's different in the spring, right? So just trying to get back into the rhythm of things. And I think having some patience with myself, with our staff, with my kids, and just remembering that it's been a minute. And we're excited to do it. We're excited to be there, but it's been a minute. So, I'm happy with our strength of schedule. I think that's great that we get to open up and right out of this, right out of the starting blocks, we're playing one of the better teams in the West region. So we're excited about that, and just looking forward to it.
Yeah, Concordia Irvine, Coach Rosenthal's done a great job there. They're top 10 preseason. They're hosting that tournament. You know them very well. I'm curious, when you step on the field in live action, what's the one thing you're fascinated to find out about your group?
How they're going to respond in tough moments during a game. Who's going to step up? What do we need to work on more? What do we do really well? Just all those things as a team, watching them start to connect more on the field as we go through more games and the process of a season. Definitely looking forward to seeing that. We have a lot of new players, and with COVID, things are a little bit different in the way we have to navigate things. They haven't been around each other as much as they're used to, even during the fall. So I think the one thing is looking forward to seeing them start to connect more with one another on the field.
Let's talk about your roster. And you mentioned a lot of new faces. Talk about some of the players people can be on the lookout for when they watch your team. Who are some of the leaders on your team?
We have some great returning seniors. We have Brooke Larson, who is going to, she's one of the better pitchers, not only in the region, but in the nation. We have Amanda Metzger returning, outfielder, one of our great hitters. We have Raylani Paletti returning, who is also a fifth-year senior, a great leader on our team, on and off the field, great hitter. We have some other seniors returning as well. I think some new faces to keep an eye on is we have a great shortstop coming in, Rachel Bless, who I'm excited to see compete. And some other new faces too, behind the plate. We got a new catcher coming in, Lainey Bloomquist, that we're excited. We got Haley Siva in the outfield, another new face that we're excited to see. So I think just looking forward to, with so many new faces, again, seeing how they respond in a season and looking forward to seeing them grow.
You mentioned those leaders there. How important is it and big that have experience like you're doing, like Larson in the circle, some of the veterans coming back that has seen it all, has been through the highs and lows? How huge is that, and how much confidence does that give you going into this season after not playing last season, not having a postseason the last 2 years? How big was it to have that? Because it could have been easily, depending on how things went, it could have been easy. You could have had a young roster with a lot of newbies and you would have to learn on the fly. But how to have that experience and that leadership back, it's got to give you some comfort.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, our game kind of starts and ends in a circle, right? I mean, it's if you don't have a pitching staff, then it's going to be really tough to win in our sport. So having an ace returner is always significant within any team. And I think that too, we have a new pitcher that I didn't mention a minute ago, Caitlin Oldwin. She's going to be added to our staff and our bullpen as well, which will help us significantly. I think that we have some other new pitchers to contribute to Brooke, but whenever you have an ace returning, that definitely means a lot for your program.
I'm curious, as you watched games last year, you followed. What was one thing you learned watching from as a spectator, if you will, as from watching that you think might help you this year? Because I mean, in a way, you scouted for a whole year, especially when it comes to your league, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, our whole conference actually didn't play.
That's right. The league is going to be all fresh. That's right. Everybody's going to learn each other new there.
Right. So we didn't, at our level, there aren't a lot of televised games. So we got to see some, but even in within our region, there were a lot of teams that didn't play a whole lot of games. So late in the postseason, I got to watch a lot with Concordia and Biola and some other teams. And I think early in the season, it was a little tougher for me to watch. So I kind of stayed away from that. But later in the season, watching, I think that we see each other enough that there wasn't necessarily anything new to learn about some of the players or returning players. It just made me miss it more. So watching them compete, looking forward to us getting back out there and competing against them was what I took away from it the most.
You mentioned it. You're right. The league didn't play last year. So how do do you treat that like everybody's kind of obviously is in the same boat, but do you treat it almost like you're in a new league, or is there things from the past that still can help you in league play as far as knowing the personnels or the programs, the coaches, et cetera? Because that is so fascinating that you all are basically, I don't want to say start from scratch, but you all took a year. I mean, not by your choice, but it was a year off basically. So now it's like it's so fascinating to see how that plays out in league play.
Yeah, it is going to be. I mean, one thing we know about the CCAA, the schools up and down California in our conference, is it's going to be a strong conference. We always, our coaches do a great job of putting together good programs up and down our conference. So we know that will be true still in our conference. We know we're going to have tough games every weekend. But yeah, there are a few returning players that could be fifth year and they get another year of eligibility due to COVID. But we really aren't going to know a whole lot about our conference going in. So some of the preseason tournaments that everybody's at, I think will be pretty significant for us to get to watch one another and see one another compete again.
How important was it when you mentioned your strength of schedule by the fact that not only you, but the league hasn't played in a postseason in 2 years? Obviously, last year you didn't play. Then 2020, the season came to an abrupt end. So you don't have that postseason experience that, say, a Biola, a Concordia, other programs do. So do you think that's a disadvantage? And do you think playing a tough schedule, playing some of these marquee teams you're all playing, will help you kind of feel like, hey, this is what postseason will look like come later in the year?
Yeah, I think that will be helpful. Do I think it's a disadvantage? Yes and no. I mean, I think that sure, when you have veteran players returning who have had that experience before, it's definitely helpful. Fortunately, we have that within our team. The numbers are lower, but we definitely have that, and they add a lot of value because of that. I think that our new players will play a strong enough schedule throughout the year that I feel confident that we'll be ready. We'll be ready when it comes time for May.
Speak of the new faces, the freshmen in particular, who committed to your program, and the immediate impact you expect from them. What do you expect from that class and some of the names there that, stuck with you, even though, like I said, you hadn't played last year? It's fascinating that it speaks to the loyalty there. And I'm sure you're excited to see what they will bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, not only do we have our key veteran players returning, but in the circle also we have a couple of new players. Caitlin Oldwin is a pitcher that we're looking forward to watching this season. I mentioned earlier, Rachel Bless is a middle, Haley Siva out in the outfield. Those are some key new players that we have coming in that we're really excited to watch and see what they do for us.
I'm curious, when you had fall practice, what was the one area of the game that right away that the players were on sharp, either offensively, defensively, or pitching? And what was the one area that maybe was a little rusty, that it needed to get some rust off in fall practice? Did you sense any of that in fall?
I think a strength of ours has always been our chemistry here. And that's because what we do and the time that we spend together, and the sisterhood that the girls create. And when you're not able to do that for 2 years, it certainly affects that and your culture. So it almost felt like we were kind of starting over and reestablishing that the entire fall season. And we're still kind of doing that. So that was the one thing that stood out that felt just off and kind of different. As we were navigating through the fall, it's definitely gotten a lot better. And I know it will continue to improve as we're spending a lot more time and traveling together and all those sorts of things.
I've had coaches that told me that during their time off, they would think of some rule as they would follow things. They would think of some rules ideas that they think that, hey, maybe why aren't we doing this in the game in softball and stuff? Did any of that pop up to your head as far as, why we should address that in softball or stuff like that? Because you don't have time to think about that when you're right there playing a season. But when you don't have a season, do you think about some things about, the sport as far as what, hey, we could do differently, either, in the Division II level, or it could be anywhere?
I mean, I think that I didn't give a whole lot of thought to that last year. I think that we think about that every year just to try to improve our sport. I think at the Division II level, there's a lot of talk about regionalization and what that looks like, and going to the postseason and going to the World Series. At our level, it's different, right? So everybody wins out of their own region to go to the World Series. So when you talk about that and you look at the 8 teams that go, it may not necessarily be the best 8 teams in the country. I think that that's a thing that I think about a lot, and even watching Division I and their postseason and how different it is. I'm not sure that that will change, strictly just due to funding at our level, and the NCAA, but that would be one thing that I think would be great for us to get a true World Series with the best 8 teams in the country competing there.
It's funny you bring that up, because D3 last year, because a lot of programs didn't play and they shortened the tournament, there was more travel. It wasn't as regionalized as normal. And I remember there was D2 coaches that would reach out to me. He's like, oh, sure, D3 could pull it off, but we can't pull it off. And look, you and I have talked about this in the past, and like that West Coast, just to get out of West Coast region, I mean, there's multiple quality World Series teams there, and you got to go through them just to get there. I did wonder about that, if maybe last year maybe got some of that chatter again within the sport of Division II, because I saw Division III went through that, where they had to expand travel because they had no choice.
Yeah, that was definitely a talking point at the convention this year. So it's something that we're all talking about and that we all want. We all want to make it happen. Whether it will or not, maybe in time it will, I'm not sure. But yeah, if you look at Division I, it would be, basically one school from the SEC going to the World Series.
Right.
Or it'd be maybe one Pac-12 school going to the World Series. And there could be multiple schools within that conference that deserve to go.
That's wild to me. But you're right. It's how it is. You can't turn. Well, you mentioned you were at the convention. I've been fascinated. What have your peers been like over the last year when they approach you and talk to you? What's kind of those conversations been like, knowing that you were on the sidelines?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've talked to some of them, and it was great to finally see them again in person out recruiting. Last summer, we got the green light last summer. So, saw some of them out on the recruiting trail, saw a couple of them at convention. And I think the feeling is just mutual all the way around, that everybody's excited to just get back at it and be on the field. And sure, we're still dealing with some stuff, with COVID, but the fact that we're back and we're practicing and we're competing, that feeling is definitely mutual, I think, up and down our conference.
Do you have goals? Do you, as a team, set goals, or do you just take it day by day? What's your philosophy when it comes to that?
I think that we try not to talk about May right now. We know that we have to earn the right to even get to that point. So, we're so just focused on right now and what we have to do to get better for tomorrow, that we're trying to stay in the moment and not get ahead of ourselves.
What's going to be some of the keys for your team to have success this year? Fill in the blank. We will be successful if we do blank.
We will be successful if we work together on and off the field and we connect as a team.
Chemistry is a big part, didn't it? It helped you get through this as a team, didn't it? Going through this chemistry, that could pay off this year, right? Going through what you've gone through, there could be a big payoff here at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for our young people, of course, they were in high school when the pandemic hit, but they still lost something. And our returners definitely lost something too. So even though it might have been a little bit different, it's still kind of the same. And yeah, the chemistry part of this and the connectivity is going to be huge for us. You know, learning how to play for the person next to you, learning how to work through some stuff for the person next to you. That's all key factors in making it through when times get tough, because we all know that it's not all perfect and roses all the time during a season, but you have to have some grit and learn how to work through that. And if you're not all moving in the same direction, that makes it really tough to get through it.
You don't have a home game till the end of February. I'll be curious when you step on the field for a get regular conference game at home. What's going to go through your mind for that first conference home game?
Gratitude, thankful to be back, excited to be back, and just remembering what that feels like and enjoying the moment. I think that's something as coaches that we don't do enough. Being present just within ourselves, and take some time to like look around and remember how great it is to be back.
Folks, check out ChicoWildcats.com for more info as to follow the season. Coach, it's been great to talk to you again. I appreciate you taking the time for the busy schedule and just tell your unique story, because I think your program, it's been a fascinating story with everything you've gone through. Certainly the sport was not as the same and not as good with you guys, and obviously the league obviously not playing last year. It's good to have you back, and always enjoyed talking to you, and appreciate you coming on, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, Eric, for having me on. Appreciate you too.